class, I am Sarah and I'm going to be teaching you about cells today. Woo. So in our previous couple of classes we did a microscope lab where you guys got to actually look at a few small living cells and how they move, and maybe saw some of the structures that were inside those cells. We've also talked about cell theory and a few other larger concepts, and now we're really going to look at cell structure. Okay, so we're going to start with the animal cell, which we're animals, so obviously we have those in our bodies. You can also refer to animal cells as somatic cells, which just means body cell, versus maybe like a nerve cell or some of the other things that we're going to be studying later on. So if you look at your handouts, which I would be providing at the beginning of the class, and they would be familiar with these handouts, you'll see the animal cell is usually depicted as this great big round structure. And this is basically just because they're trying to show you that the cell membrane is not a rigid structure. It doesn't have a specific shape. It's a little more flexible, so that's why they're usually depicted as round. And this is a semi-permeable membrane. Can anybody tell me what that means? Yeah, maybe?
Stuff can get through it. Stuff can get through it.
Yes, exactly, but only certain stuff in certain cases. So it actually controls the flow of things in and out of the cell. So, and then if we look inside of the cell, past the membrane, you can see a large round structure. Very important to the cell. It's kind of like an information center. Can anybody tell me what this might be called? This is going to be our nucleus. So this controls all of the cell's functions. It controls what goes in and out of the cell, it controls what the cell is doing, if it's growing, if it's going to replicate, those kinds of things. And there's a few structures that you'll see around the nucleus. So you're going to see a kind of stacked, folded structure like this, and it has these little lovely embedded proteins called ribosomes. Alright, so the rough, or I guess I should tell you what this is, sorry. This is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And for any of you who can't read my writing, don't worry. Later on in this lesson, you are going to be looking at an interactive cell where you will get to see clearly printed labels for everything. And for the purpose of this, I am going to be working my board writing, so hopefully that will get better soon. This can also be called the rough ER as an abbreviation for endoplasmic reticulum, if you'd like to put that in your notes. Now, the rough endoplasmic reticulum isn't the only endoplasmic reticulum inside the cell. There's another one. This one, though, is a little bit different. It doesn't have these proteins. So what might we call this? If this one's rough, this one's going to be smooth. Yeah. You guys are smart. Look at this. Don't even have to teach you. So that's our smooth ER. So this one does protein synthesis, whereas this one has stuff to do with protein synthesis, but it more involves lipid synthesis as well. Alright, so now we've covered our nucleus and our ERs. We also have inside of our cell a little powerhouse, kind of like a factory plant or a power plant, if you will. And it has two membranes, the outer membrane and the inner membrane. And the inner membrane is folded in, and this creates more surface area for the reactions. And these reactions create energy for the plant, or for the cell. It breaks down glucose and creates energy. And this is our mitochondria. If I can spell this correctly. Alright, so our mitochondria is the power plant of this cell. Then we're going to move on and we're going to look at other structures. And they're smaller in animals and larger in plants. And these are like little storage containers. And they might store water, they might store proteins, they might have waste products. They can store quite a few different things. What might we call these? Do you remember from our previous talks? These are our vacuoles. So our vacuoles store materials that the plant might use later. They can also break down old cell parts or waste products and help transport those out of the cell. All right? Some of these other ones are lysosomes. And these are filled with enzymes that break down products. Hence the lyse, which means to, I think it's to cut. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about for now for our animal cell. And we'll do the plant cell tomorrow, just because we're running out of time here a little bit. But for the animal cell today, I want you guys to use your tech, or you can use the tech that we have for the teacher at the board if you don't have your own. And just go to cellsalive.ca and look up the animal interactive cell model there. And just work through it either individually or in small groups of 2 to 3. And just take a look at the animal cell and fill out your diagram. Make sure you're looking at the organelle structures and functions, and make sure that you understand what those functions are. I'll give you guys about 5 to 10 minutes to do this, and then we'll come back as a class and we'll label a diagram on the board together to make sure that everybody knows what these structures are and where they are in our cell. All right. So we'll get rid of that and give the class time to do their little activity, and then we come back together as a class and label one on the board, a projected one this time instead of a drawn one, and then we would continue on with our lesson. So, having looked at the interactive cell online, they should now understand some of the structures, and then we would just go over those with the handout. So I guess, since this went faster than I thought it was going to, we'll do the bit of the plant cell as well. So the plant cell, whereas the animal cell is depicted as being more rounded, the plant cell is usually depicted as more square. Can anybody tell me why this would be? Yeah, the cell wall. So, whereas the animal cell only has a membrane, the plant cell has a cell wall and a membrane. So the cell wall is the very outermost, and then there's a membrane inside of that as well. So it's got 2. Now, can anybody tell me what the cell wall might do for the plant cell?
Keeps things out.
Yeah, exactly. So it helps with that protection. It also gives support. So this cell wall is a little more rigid than the cell membrane and helps keep the structure of the plant cell. Alright, now the plant cell, you're going to recognize some of these. So we'll just do these really quick. So it has a nucleus. It's got the, I'll skip over those for now. It also has the mitochondria. One of the different structures in a plant cell, though, that is not in an animal cell, is the chloroplast. So these are little kind of rounded green structures, and they contain, can anybody tell me what they might contain that makes them green?
Chlorophyll.
Yeah, chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is inside our, let me spell this correctly. I always screw up chloroplast for some reason. It's not a hard word, don't have to. So that's our chloroplast, and it contains chlorophyll. Now, chloroplasts are the structures that take care of photosynthesis for the cell. So they take in the energy from sunlight and then produce, using CO2 and the sunlight, they produce glucose, which is broken down into